The Ark of the Covenant probably passed on to Alexander the Great of ancient Greece. A very strange claim says, when Alexander overthrew the Persian state of Darius in 329 BC and entered the Persian palaces, he found himself in front of the greatest treasuries in history. These treasuries finally defined Greek history because they were the ones who financed the endless wars between the successors of Alexander the Great. They are also a milestone of the history of the economy. The existence and circulation of such an amount of money created for the first time inflationary trends. The story of inflation begins the moment Alexander began to take Darius's gold out of the warehouses and distribute it to the Greeks. Now let's remember, this was 329 BC. About 570 BC is when the Persians took over Jerusalem and Israel. And there was the great exodus towards Babylonia. And they took with them the holy articles of except for the ark, they took the lampstands and other things with them. Now, these have only a relaxed relationship in the history of the ark. They show that there were so many valuables that even the Ark of the Covenant could have been lost among them. The treasure of Darius was essentially the treasure of all the states of Mesopotamia accumulated from the dawn of their history. The 3,000-year-old gold from the time of the Sumerians, and as one people conquered the other, and the states and empires of the region spread to each other, each's gold and treasures often changed hands. Darius had treasures and spoils that came from Greece and from the various peoples that he and his predecessors had conquered. But these were the least. There were treasures found in Cyprus, the first Persian king of the Medes, and the treasures that the Medes had snatched from the Babylonians when they destroyed Babylon. And of course, the Babylonians had treasures and spoils from the peoples they had conquered, the Assyrians and others, including the Jews of Israel, Jerusalem. So at the moment, and of course the temple. So at the moment when Alexander the Greek saw the gold of Darius, the history and the fate of the lost ark were united with Greece. This may include Josephus' account that the Jews of Jerusalem and their high priest received Alexander with honors. Jewish Archaeology 325. It has happened. And at that time they told him about the book of Daniel, the prophecy concerning him. Now, however, in the stories about Alexander, there is a reference to a valuable box. Plutarch writes in Alexander 26:1 that they brought a valuable box, quote unquote, to Alexander that was found in Darius's luggage. Those who saw it wondered what it would be worth to keep it in there, and Alexander said that the only book of the Iliad would be worth such an honor. Was it the Ark of the Covenant? We know that all the sacred objects of the Jews seized by the Babylonians, conquerors from Jerusalem, reached the hands of the Persians. The Persian king Cyrus himself inherited them and gave them to the Jews when he allowed them to return to Palestine and rebuild Jerusalem and its temple. The ark, if it had not been lost, would have remained in the hands of Cyrus and the Persians. Cyrus was not unrelated to the Jewish religion. Although he had the ark in his hands and knew it, it's absolutely certain that it would be the last thing he would give to the Jews. He allowed them to return to Jerusalem further to get rid of them from his capital, not to find additional trouble and another outbreak of revolution. If the Jews had the ark as their most sacred object, they might have been tempted to seek their independence and autonomy again. But as long as the ark was under the discreet guardianship of the Persians, the Persian kings would have Jerusalem in their hands, is what they believed. So the Ark of the Covenant, according to this version, remained in the Persian palaces, waiting for Alexander and the Greeks, from the Assyrians to the Babylonians, from the Babylonians to the Medes, from the Medes to the Persians to Alexander, who sent what he could from that treasure back to Greece. A part went to the votive offerings in Delphi and other holy places. Another part which could be recognized as booty taken by the Persians from Greek cities, was returned to their owners. Alexander sent huge quantities of Persian treasures to Macedonia, that's northern Greece. We know about 150 years later, there was a large quantity left, enough to impress the Roman conquerors. Plutarch describes in the life of Aemilius Paul the treasure he brought to Rome after his victory over Persia by the last Macedonian king. The loot was spent in a procession for 3 days. On the first day, 250 carriages loaded with statues, coins, and statues passed. The next day, carriages with Macedonian weapons followed by 3,000 men, 4 of whom were carrying a silver container full of silver coins, while others were carrying various valuables and decorations. On the third day, 77 gold containers were carried, in which there were gold coins, as had been done with the silver ones. Over 150 years of spending on armaments, wars, waste, and exaggerations that characterized the Hellenistic period of the successors of Alexander the Great, and the treasure was still large enough to dazzle the Romans. So what would it be like in the beginning when Alexander saw this treasure? In the midst of so much wealth, a golden ark would be just another pot of gold coins. The ark could reach Pella along with the rest. It would have to stay there until Perseus lost Macedonia to the high Aemilius Paul. For some inexplicable reason, neither the Persians, in face of the most serious danger of their life in the kingdom, nor his Macedonian predecessors redeemed the treasures of Darius to strengthen their defense or to finance their war plans. The Romans found so much gold that if Perseus had used it, Macedonia might not have been lost. Yet people always behave strangely with their treasures. They may be hungry, greedy, but the gold they inherited often refuses to leave. As for the ark, the value of which seems to have never been understood by the Macedonian temporary holders, it went to Rome, and there it must have spent the following centuries in obscurity, nor did it mean anything to the Romans. Only when the succession of Rome came to a state with Christian emperors of Constantinople would they find this in front of the people who could realize how precious it was. When it traveled again to the east, as the Arabic legend says, and to Constantinople, today's Istanbul, to be lost again in Byzantine hands this time, and in this phase of the wandering of the Ark of the Covenant, it was repeated that it happened in the past centuries. It was hidden somewhere and forgotten, or it was taken back somewhere in Rome by the Crusaders of the Fourth Crusade when they captured Constantinople, Istanbul today. Rome often appears as the final place where the Ark was found, but in Rome it is not. If it was really there in the Vatican, then there would be no reason to hide it. So it probably isn't in the Vatican either. Where could it be? Where can the Testament Ark be hidden? It depends on its course from the hands of Alexander the Great onwards. The course, we can imagine, has many deviations from Alexander arrived together with the rest of the Persian treasures in Macedonia, in northern Greece. In the simplest case, the Ark of the Covenant remained in Pella until the defeat of Perseus by the Romans, or maybe, if it was among the treasure, it was listed with other valuables somewhere. In this case, it should still be buried somewhere in Emathia, maybe, in a rural location near Varia, Pella, or Vergina, or further south in the area of Olympus, where the last battle of Perseus took place. And if from the point on, again, the Ark of the Covenant was still among the treasures of Pella, then it would surely have fallen into Roman hands, although there is no reference to it anywhere. Eventually, it would reach Rome and remain in the hands of the Roman emperors. If the Arabic narrative about Heraclion is valuable, then the Ark returned from the west to the Eastern Empire and into the hands of Byzantine emperors. I cannot expand here, but if that's really the case, the Ark should have remained a seven-sealed secret of the monastery, which may have guarded it without even knowing what it was about. The Byzantines were crazy about religious objects and relics. If it was well known that they had the Ark, we would know. They may have thought that the Ark of the Covenant would give revolutionary incentives to the scattered Jews of the empire, and that the religious benefits of the public display were not worth it. It is not the only religious object suspected of being in the Constantinople Empire during the 6th and 7th centuries AD. A similar case is that the Shroud of Jesus, now in Turin in Italy, a similar cloth was in the hands of the emperors of Constantinople, but few references describe it smaller. Was the shroud really folded so it looked smaller without being smaller, or something? Did it happen with the Ark of the Covenant? Is it mentioned somewhere so vaguely that the reader's mind does not go to it? In any case, if the Ark remained in the Eastern Empire, it should be sought somewhere between Salonika and Constantinople, the areas of intense but also somewhat unknown religious activity. So not on Mount Athos, maybe somewhere in northern Halkidiki, the peninsula just east of Salonika in northern Greece. There's still a very interesting place in Rhodope at Mount Papico. There was a large monastic state analogous to Mount Athos. Dozens of monasteries, now destroyed, once existed in 65 locations in the area, north of Komotini, near the Greek-Bulgarian border. Maybe the Ark is in some lost crypt. Thus, the zone that could hide the Ark could be limited to from Olympus in Veria to Komotini and Rhodope. Of course, the situation it will be today will be very bad. The land of Macedonia and Thrace is not the dry area of Egypt, where the wood is kept intact for millennia. Only a miracle could keep it in good condition for so many years. That is the wood of the Ark of the Covenant. But who knows? Miracles happen, and one day, in our not-too-distant future, a lucky researcher will discover the most unexpected object from Alexander's treasures, while for millennia, waiting for millennia, somewhere in Macedonia or Thrace to be discovered again. This I've translated for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.